My name is David Harris. I represent the city of La Mesa. As chair of the committee, I welcome members of the public, San Diego Community Power staff, and committee members joining us in person and online today. Thank you to Community Power staff for making this in-person meeting possible and the Port of San Diego for accommodating us here today. I will now call the meeting to order. Assistant Clerk of the Board, Sandra Garces, will now call the roll.
Committee member Sclafani. Committee member Gonzalez.
Here.
Committee member Hammond.
Here.
Committee member Hoyt.
Here.
Committee member Anderson.
Here.
Committee member Sumner.
Here.
Committee member Santos. Here. Committee member Emerson.
Here.
Committee member Batalakis. Secretary Pike.
Here.
Vice Chair Montero Adams. Chair Harris.
Here.
We have four, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Please stand. I lead in the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We would also like to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge that the Kumeyaay Nation are the original inhabitants of the land now known as San Diego, where this meeting is taking place. Today, we carry their legacy forward, ensuring that their traditions continue to thrive in gratitude and strength, and we stand with the Kumeyaay Nation, connected to our past and committed to a more just, sustainable, and resilient future for all. Quorum is present. First up is special presentations. I am excited to officially announce to this group that at the last Board of Directors meeting, the board appointed a new member, a new CAC representative for National City. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Zoraida Santos. Welcome. Zoraida introduces herself to the committee. I thought it'd be helpful for her to get to know our members, so we'll go around and introduce each of ourselves to Zoraida.
Excited to be here. I'm really excited to be working with all of you. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a VP project manager at Bank of California, so I work on rolling out new technology to branch systems and clients. We are a business venture banking space, so we don't really work with members in general. Just a little bit more about me. I have lived in National City since middle school. I did go away to college, but I came back. But I've always really been involved in my community and helping out in that space, and always look forward to leadership opportunities. And so when I heard about this opportunity and in this space, I feel like we should always be advocating for our people, our communities, and National City. I don't know that too many people know about this, so I'm really excited to be a part of this and to get more people in National City involved.
Okay. Thank you, Zoraida. I'm David Harris. I represent the city of La Mesa. I'm a member of the city's planning commission and been very involved in climate activities with San Diego 350. And now I'm chair of this committee. It's been the next 3 or 4 months.
Luis Montel Adams, from TM, representing the city of San Diego. I've had the honor of being on the CAC for a little over a year. And I think I asked the wrong questions to the wrong person, and they recommended that I turn that curiosity into participating in this. So that's kind of how I got pulled into it, but I'm absolutely this whole time.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. No, I'm all the way over here. It was my fault.
I'm Ross Fike. I represent unincorporated San Diego County and live up in Fallbrook, where I serve on the board of directors for the North County Fire Protection District and on the Fallbrook Community Planning Group. My day job is I work for Assembly Member Dr. Gershon Tell, where I do work on energy and utility policies. And I was just very interested in more how energy and how that all worked being a fire director, especially with battery energy storage facilities. That piqued my interest, and then all of a sudden I wound up here. So, thank you.
Kathy.
name is Matthew Vasilakis, he, him pronouns. I'm a managing director at a national nonprofit called the Building Electrification Institute, and we help cities with their building decarbonization policies and programs. And prior to this, I worked at Climate Action Campaign. We did a lot of work around community choice aggregation advocacy. So been around a while, and I've been on this committee for almost 6 years now.
I'm Ken Hoy, and I'm very committed to this Imperial Beach. And we're still practicing general practice.
Welcome, Soraya Alonso Gonzalez. On behalf of the city of Chula Vista, where I served for a couple of years on the city council. And I was the newest member of the board, so I'm especially happy to have you here today. But I'm happy to offer you all the insight that a couple of months on the board has gave.
Welcome, Soraya. I'm Sean Sumner. I'm a representative, the other representative from Mesa. And I've been on the committee here almost a year, working on a full year. And my day job is I'm a commercial real estate development consultant. So I have just a passion for getting projects done and built. And I'm an EV owner, so I love electrification and passionate about what Community Power is doing. And glad to have had the opportunity to join. Welcome. Glad to support you.
And I'm your counterpart in the National City. I've been a member for 4 years plus or minus, I forget exactly. And I'm came to the National City when my dad retired from the military, and that was 6th grade. I was harvesting Granger in Sweetwater. And I'm a member of the Electric Vehicle Association, was active with San Diego 350 Clean Energy. Recently joined the National City Historical Society, and today I made a presentation at Paradise Village Senior Living Facility in the city of National City. And my favorite restaurants, so. I'll talk about it in the future.
Yeah, Peter.
Welcome. I'm Peter Anderson. I'm a retired San Diego State University professor. And I serve on I'm the immediate past chair of Sierra Club San Diego, and I serve on 4 Sierra Club committees, including I'm the chair of the climate committee. And in addition to this board, a couple other boards. So it keeps me rather busy in the term.
Thank you.
Tara.
Oh, yeah, let's keep going.
Hi, I'm Tara Hammond, she, her pronouns. I'm the Encinitas representative. I've been a climate activist in San Diego since 2007. I advocated for community choice energy locally starting in 2012, and I've been on the CAC since inception. I launched Hammond Climate Solutions Foundation, a local nonprofit in the climate space just over 6 years ago. And among other things, we help local nonprofits and national and now international nonprofits go solar. Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thanks, Tara. Hey, also joining us this evening for the first time, some of them online, are 3 new staff members of Community Power, including Kylie Wakefield, who's a paralegal, Paige Spinilla-Flynn, who's a procurement analyst, and Michelle Phillips, senior financial analyst. Would you like to come up for a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Kylie Wakefield, and I'm glad I was able to join today doing all the introductions. So as mentioned, I started as a paralegal with Community Power in January. I'm really enjoying the work. Prior to my work here with Community Power, I was working on legal research for marine protected areas. And prior to that, I spent 4 years at Center for Sustainable Energy doing legal and policy work in the distributed generation space, as well as EV space and a lot of the electric projects they were working on there. So happy to be a part of the Community Power team and look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Cool.
Michelle Phillips. I just started at San Diego Community Power last week as a senior financial analyst under Mark Alfaro. I'll be supporting the SD-REN program, and prior to that, I was working with Georgia Tech Research Institute on portfolio of cybersecurity projects for DoD. So it's nice to meet you all.
And do we have Paige as well?
Yes, we have Paige online.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paige Spinius Flynn, and I'm a new procurement analyst at Community Power, and I joined in January. I have around 8 years of public procurement experience in the San Diego area. I've worked at places like Sandag, North County Transit District, and most recently the city of San Diego. Really excited to join the team over at Community Power. Nice meeting everyone.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Sandra, are there any other items on the agenda to be withdrawn? No. Okay. Next up, we have non-agenda public comment. Written public comments submitted before the committee meeting are emailed to all CAC members prior to the committee meeting and will be posted on the website at the beginning of the meeting. Sandra, do we have any agenda public comment?
We do not.
Okay, let's move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar contains items that can be approved as a package without discussion unless a CAC member or a member of the public requests that an item be removed for separate discussion and action. The CAC received staff reports for all these items on the consent agenda, and staff provided an opportunity for questions and comments during briefings that were held prior to this meeting. Today's consent agenda includes approval of the February 12th, 2025, that should be 2026 CAC meeting minutes, update on marketing, public relations, and local government affairs, update on customer operations, an update on programs, an update on power services, and finally, the update on regulatory and legislative affairs. Sandra, do we have any public comment on these consent agenda items?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to remove any item from this consent agenda? Seeing none, okay. I will now turn it over to the committee members for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay, Mr. White. Please, Carol Adams, second. Clerk, please call the vote.
Committee member Gonzalez,
Aye.
committee member Hammond,
Aye.
committee member Hoyt,
Aye.
committee member Anderson,
Anderson, aye.
committee member Sumner,
Aye.
committee member Santos, committee member Emerson,
Aye.
committee member Vasilati,
Aye.
Secretary Pike,
Aye.
Vice Chair Montero Adam.
Aye.
Chair Harris.
Aye.
Carries.
Excellent. Okay. Let's move on now to the regular agenda, starting with item 7, which is inclusive and sustainable workforce policy amendments and updates to energy proposal evaluation criteria and the updates to the energy proposal evaluation criteria. 2 items in the set.
It's a long title. I'm joining you today virtually. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Andrea. We
Yeah,
can.
good evening, everyone. Just as a reminder, I'm Andrea Torres, Director of Origination. I, among others in the team, are tasked with sourcing long-term wholesale contracts for renewable energy storage projects, which is, of course, key to our plan to meet our renewable targets and create high-quality jobs in this sector that support healthy families and vibrant communities. So today I'm presenting modifications to our policies and procedures that govern our assessment of projects that are submitted to us in the solicitations for those renewable and storage projects, specifically those policies that are related to our workforce commitments. These modifications were approved at last month's board meeting. So I'm here today to brief you on what those are. So as I just wanted to point out, this effort was kicked off at a November board meeting where in particular Chair Lawson Reamer and Director Ella Rivera directed staff to evaluate potential changes to our workforce policies and make recommendations to support stronger commitments. There were a list of items that were included in that directive for us to explore for feasibility and adoption. And those included those listed here. So that included a quantitative scoring system for workforce commitments, prevailing wage requirements, with and following of federal Davis-Bacon wage provisions in states without that prevailing wage law. Use of skilled and trained workforce provisions under California law, and those really govern apprenticeship requirements and items like apprentice and journeyman ratios, etc. Commitments to hiring locally, use of union maintenance agreements during operations often are focused on workforce provisions, focused on the construction period. Additional or modified project labor agreements or PLA standards, which is generally considered the gold standard for commitments to sustainable, skilled and trained workforce, including a consideration of whether to require on how we might adopt a PLA requirement for certain utility scale projects. And then we don't currently own any of these assets ourselves. We contract for product through third parties under a power purchase agreement. But if and when we do decide to directly own, the directive was to include consideration for a PLA requirement or provisions for when that does occur, and use of best value procurement where possible. So next slide, please. So the first of two documents, lots of acronyms, I apologize, is that Inclusive and Sustainable Workforce Policy, or ISWP. So we tackled that, updates to that document to really enhance the language we had around the data we collect on workforce, the communications we have for how we prioritize and incentivize and provide higher rankings to projects that have the highest levels of commitments. And we codify the use of that other policy procedure document called the Energy Proposal Evaluation Criteria document, or EPEC, and as a tool to evaluate long-term proposals for long-term contracts to us. And so we spelled out a lot of those particular provisions that can that developers can earn higher rankings for. And so that's just kind of a recap of what I proposed, what I outlined on the prior slide. And then after a lot of research discussion among internal and external stakeholders, we are adopting a requirement for a PLA for all utility scale projects that are solar, wind, or battery storage. Those technologies are kind of the bread and butter of our current portfolio. We have numerous contracts for those technologies. And for the purposes of this requirement, utility scale means 10 megawatts and greater. And then finally, it outlines a brief process for how we are committed to engaging with the San Diego Building and Construction Trades Council and other stakeholders for input on how we would approach PLA commitments for those efforts. Next slide, please. So the EPEC, as a reminder, we've had this tool for some time, certainly as long as I've been here. I think back 2023 was the last time we revisited this tool with the CAC and the board. But the EPEC includes a couple categories of criteria that we evaluate, one of which is workforce standards. And so we have a ranking category to earn an A through an F, depending on your how you rank in those criteria. Next slide, please. So high level, we decided to and proposed breaking out criteria between the utility scale projects and what we're terming community scale projects, those projects size under 10 megawatts. Part of that was to make clear that the PLA is required, again, for those solar, storage, and wind projects. And then create sort of a separate set of standards for smaller community scale projects, because we're really As you may know, we have certain distributed energy resource targets for and within our procurement. We have a larger 300 megawatt target, 150 megawatts of which are in our purview within power services for those front of meter wholesale projects. And so we really wanted to ensure that developers that participate in those programs and our solicitations can either meet the highest ranking by either engaging on a project labor agreement and committing to that, or other various metrics as well. And I'll go through those on a following slide. Actually, you can go to the next slide now. So this is a lot of text, but I'll just orient you very high level. I tried to put some things in bold. But on the left is the provision for utility scale. If you don't execute a PLA, and this is for the non-solar wind and storage projects, you can you can get the next highest score, level B, if you either commit to at least 50% union labor or 80% local hire, or adopt and commit to the use of those union maintenance agreements. And then we cascade requirements that are met. If you don't meet those requirements, if you meet something less, then you get a lesser score, and so on. So on the right, we have that either or option. You could meet the highest score as a community scale project by adopting a PLA, or those other similar provisions that are also covered on the utility scale side. So we really hope that this bifurcated approach really is enforcing the highest standards we think that developers can achieve at this current time in the market. I try to recall if I have one more slide here. No, that's the last slide. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on our thought process on this. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Andrea. Sandra, do we have any public comment on this item? Okay. I thought this item would. Not today, okay. Yes, we will now turn it over to our members for questions and discussion. I'm going to start with Matthew.
Thank you. Andrea, thank you so much for this work. I know it's incredibly complex and you have to manage so many different stakeholders in the process. I was curious, given the updates which have already been approved, how do you think these updates might help with the promotion of supplier and workforce diversity, including returning veterans as well as from communities of concern? I know that PLAs can be very helpful in ensuring high quality job standards, and there can be some challenges ensuring there's workforce diversity. So I'm curious as to how this helps, and are there any ways that we can ensure that these PPAs that are coming through and these PLAs are also achieving that goal of higher workforce diversity?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I realized I didn't update a bullet in my slide deck to adapt what occurred at the board meeting on last month, in which Director Fisher specifically asked for an ability for projects to earn higher rankings for committing to the diverse business enterprises, including those that are certified veteran, owned, or with a certain threshold of a veteran hire, et cetera. And those are covered in state law. And so we included that in our inclusive and sustainable workforce policy as a way to incentivize those types of commitments to earn those higher rankings.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you. Great presentation. Appreciate the information. What, if anything, are we doing on the educational side of things to make sure that as these PLAs start coming online, that we have, that we have enough people in the pipeline to be ready to answer the call when it's time to build these projects? Because it's great to set the standard and requirements, but how are we making sure we're bringing people along that they're ready when these projects take effect?
Yeah, I think the skilled and trained workforce language really, I believe, has a lot of underlying provisions for bringing up that new generation of workforce through those apprenticeship commitments. As an example, we're working through some local projects right now in pipeline under our DAC GT program, where we're really trying to incentivize as much commitments to the highest kind of ratios of apprentice to journeyman, so you can bring up the level of expertise and training required to help install, all of these assets to meet our ambitious targets. I don't know if anyone else in the other team has any further discussion on that front, but it's definitely a frequently discussed topic for how we can meet our targets while creating those high quality jobs.
Kenneth.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. You're very good. Do we have a model PLA agreement?
Do we have a what PLA agreement?
A model.
Model PLA agreement. No, we don't as an agency. Historically, we have relied on the developer relationships with the unions to work on a mutually acceptable PLA structure and provisions therein. That could, especially when we're talking about community power owned assets, I view that as a clear opportunity to have sort of a model PLA.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you for the excellent presentation during the briefing and for sending me a more detailed answer to one of my questions, which included a pretty comprehensive list of all of our energy producers and where they're located and such. So that was fabulous. I have one follow-up question to that, however. What percentage of San Diego Communities Power comes from developers that are producing either small or large scale industrial power versus rooftops of customers? I know that depends on the time of day, probably. But do you have a rough percentage that comes from commercial enterprises versus us ordinary citizens that have solar on their roof or in the backyard?
I do not have that offhand as just pursuant to my scope of work, which focuses on those what we call front of meter resources, and that's the product and volume we track for purposes of, say, our power content label and our targets there. There's a lot of, you point out behind the meter installation of, PV on residential rooftops, et cetera, that I don't have that number offhand, but I could definitely chat about that with our programs team.
Perfect. Yeah, if you can send it to me as you did this week, I would appreciate it. And I just want to applaud the criteria you're using for paying prevailing wage and attempting to get union contracts or contracts from veterans. I think your criteria are spot on. And I've often said of the many crises we have in San Diego County, including the homeownership crisis, which we're about all the time, it's partly an income crisis. So it's good that we're requiring developers to pay the prevailing wage, so the people that work for those companies can afford to live here. And very important. So thank you.
Alonso. Thanks. My interest was piqued when I saw this as an action item. And I agreed with Chair Harris that this was an interesting topic, and I wouldn't have been surprised if there were public speakers on this. But they might have noticed that at least the bulk of it was already, unless I'm mistaken, already presented, debated, and accepted at the board.
Yes.
So it's just a kind of a process question. Is any of this going back to the board still, like the Fisher Amendment or the second part, the evaluation criteria, or has all of it already been accepted and adopted?
Yeah, happy to answer that. It's all been accepted and adopted. Fisher was prepared at the board meeting with language that could be on the spot adopted that the board was comfortable with. So the language, say on the veteran provision, is in the staff report already in corresponding materials. I just neglected to highlight that in my slide deck here. So that's the good news there, and that includes adoption of both documents. So what we're working on now is we have we call it the rolling local RFI, request for information solicitation out there that exists all the time because we are always interested in more and more local wherever we can find it if it's a good fit. That we are updating now to adopt and incorporate what was approved last month. So we should have that posted pretty soon here. So that'll be externally facing. And then to answer your earlier question, last month's board meeting it was one of the more highly attended board meetings that I've been to in many, many months. And so there was a lot of representation and support from the unions for these workforce provisions there. So that was good to see.
Elise.
Andrea, thank you so much for the presentation. My question similarly is more procedurally. I appreciate the description between the different ranks, but I just wanted to better understand the final implementation for the ranks. Is the idea that if a proposal receives an F or low rating, that it would only be eligible for approval if there are no other proposals with an A, B, or C? Or would the board be able to approve a F rating above any other higher if the board perceives it to be all withstanding the correct choice?
That's an excellent question. So the EPEC or EPEC is an evaluation criteria, so it doesn't exclude us from picking a project that ranks particularly low in any category. There's one of 6 categories, right? So it doesn't do that. So there is flexibility there. However, particularly with competitive solicitations where you have many offers to choose from, and you can, have a good pool of resources, which we always want to be able to pick the highest commitments. We absolutely will be doing that. If there's extenuating circumstances that were for whatever reason on balance, despite a particularly lower score, those are definitely evaluated on a case-by-case and thoughtful basis. The PLA requirement for utility scale projects there, that would be something that, that is intended to be, a go, no go criteria at this point in time.
And that would be on the 10 megawatt or higher projects.
Yes, correct.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. Sorry, and it's not for Andrea. I have a question. I may be forgetting. Did we go over this item before it went to the board?
No.
To provide feedback? Okay. Is that a normal procedural thing that'll be happening moving forward?
Good answer.
Yes, please.
I can answer that. No, this one went a little bit out of order because we were working up to the very last minute on this agreement and these protocols. Typically, we like to bring items to the CAC before we go to the board. Every now and again, we go a little bit out of order because they're up till last minute.
Okay, I understand that. Labor standards, I think, are pretty important given the gravity and the interest that was at the board. It's a little interesting, but I appreciate knowing that.
Yeah, and I definitely concur with Jack on that one. That was not our intent and hope for that process. We were kind of at the final finish line there. I will point out in 2023, when we last revisited this, we did stage it with CAC first and then the board.
Thank you.
I just had a comment, Andrea, about the distributed energy resource projects going forward. Yeah, from this time forward with the new policies in place. I just wanted to monitor to some extent any feedback that we get from developers who want to submit for the RFI, but find there's some barriers for their company. And especially being sensitive to the fact that we want it to be local, we want to involve local contractors when possible. And the size of these projects are conducive to that. And so it would be helpful to know going forward if you and your staff encounter any developers who complain that these are insurmountable type of policies for their company.
Yeah, yes, and I think, you know, this is definitely, these policies are, in my view, especially with the ever-evolving market and different landscape, workforce landscape, you know, project economics, et cetera, these documents would, I think, be a living document. If it proves to be really problematic and unanticipated consequences from this, from these updates, I would imagine as an agency, we'd want to revisit. But as it is, we're trying to be thoughtful about how we, on the one hand, incentivize the highest commitments possible without shutting people, developers and projects out necessarily at this scale. Because again, it's a key strategic priority for us to get more local, smaller scale community infill type projects in our portfolio.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The other, okay, Larry.
Yes, Larry from National City. Thank you for the presentation. Could you just highlight again the major changes that occurred in this update? Could you just go over that one more time?
Yeah, so I would say that probably the biggest one was a PLA requirement. You know, not just an evaluation criteria, but a requirement for utility scale projects. Further, we got more prescriptive with the metrics for which you could earn higher scores and try to bump those up. So before we just had like a 50% union commitment that you could earn for a certain score. We added provisions for 80% local hire as another way you could meet these criteria. The board is really interested in including provisions for and allowances and consideration for projects that enter into union maintenance agreements through operations. And I think that's kind of a new frontier for us overall. That inclusion, more specificity for diverse business enterprises, you know, that calls out veteran hire, et cetera. That's new under the PPA realm. So yeah, there are quite a few, I would say, high level, more specificity and guidance to the developer community on what we're looking for.
Thank you. And just one other general question. Recently got the email news release that San Diego Community Power, because of being more financially stable, they got a credit rating. Is that the right word for that?
Yes.
Have an A credit rating. How does that seem to affect any of these kind of projects, or what would you say?
That's very good question. So I think it's a very common question we get asked from developers. Do you have a credit rating? What is the rating, etc. I'd say it becomes more and more of a question we get from larger capital intensive projects than smaller shops. But I'd say in general, it puts us in a good position, especially compared to our, fellow CCA organizations or the big utilities, to demonstrate that we're a good partner for these long-term commitments. These power purchase agreements are 10, 15, 20 years long. So it makes our jobs easier. One of the ways it makes our jobs easier when we're negotiating these deals and sourcing these deals.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Well, this is a receive and file item and no further action is needed. Thank you, Andrea, for your presentation and for all the good discussion and questions.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's move on to item 8, Community Benefits Framework. And we'll turn it over to Zia Mollis Crespo, Senior Community Engagement Manager. Zia.
Presenting from here. So good evening, everybody. Today, we want to talk through our recommendations for how Community Power could use community benefits funding and get your feedback before it goes to the board. In preparation for this discussion, staff spent time reviewing the agreements, benchmarking models for similar funding, and evaluating how what would be feasible for our agency to implement. And as a overview, as you see on the screen, community benefits funding comes from legally binding provisions in our power purchase agreements, or our PPAs, between developers and Community Power. These provisions ensure that our local communities share in the benefits of major clean energy projects, and Community Power anticipates approximately $2.8 million through 2028 from negotiated PPAs in community benefits specifically. Allowable uses of these funds generally include housing, education, workforce development, environmental stewardship, habitat improvement, as well as other initiatives of mutual interest between Community Power and project developers. Some additional considerations are that some projects may require developer review of how funds are expected to be used before they're actually released, and that our general counsel may interpret allowable uses on a project-by-project basis based on the language of the contract. With that overview in mind, the next slide shows how this funding is expected to come in over time and across projects. So this table shows a breakdown of the anticipated funding contributions tied to each project. The key takeaway of this, and I'm not going to dwell on it for too long, is that this funding arrives gradually and is associated to specific projects. So we won't get the 2.8 million right away. Because of that, it should be treated as limited one-time funding rather than a permanent revenue stream. And with that context, staff identified several important considerations that guided how we're approaching a potential framework for using these funds. Next slide, please. So as staff evaluated different options, we focused on a few guiding considerations, starting off with strategic alignment. So funding should align with Community Power's strategic goals, which we all were a part of developing earlier last year. And whenever possible, built on programs we already operate successfully. In terms of this funding being a one-time funding, this funding does come from a limited number of PPAs and does not represent ongoing revenue. So this means that we should generally avoid creating permanent financial commitments. In terms of permissible uses, Community Power generally has discretion over how these funds are used. However, some agreements, as I mentioned, do require developer review, and general counsel will help interpret allowable uses when developing the framework. In terms of governance, the board also may choose to delegate implementation authority to staff or hire a program administrator to run the program that comes out of this. And last but certainly not least, in terms of community engagement, CAC and the board will, your input will really support us in developing the framework. But additional outreach may be recommended consistent with Community Power's conflict of interest and ethical conduct policies, so that we're not potentially borrowing from receiving this funding stakeholders that may ultimately benefit from it. Now, staff explored several possible approaches to arrive at the recommendation we are presenting today. Next slide, please. And after reviewing the agreements, benchmarking other models, and evaluating administrative feasibility, staff identified an approach that can maximize community impact while staying within the scope of the agreements. So we're recommending prioritizing community grant making focused on distributed energy resources, or DER, particularly in communities of concern for profits, small businesses, community serving facilities, and member agency partners. We think this approach would lower energy costs for community serving organizations, as well as allow Community Power to continue to explore how to best serve them through our existing programming. It could also increase workforce development opportunities in the region, provide resilience and backup power during outages, support local clean energy development, and help advance Community Power's 150 megawatt local development goal. It also meets criteria of aligning with contractual allowable uses and feasibility within available funding levels, because it does provide us with that flexibility. This will also fit within Community Power's administrative capacity and offer a measurable long-term impact that we will be able to share with you all. As part of this process, staff also reviewed how similar funding is used locally and nationally, including samples from other community choice aggregators like Clean Energy and public agencies like the Public Utility District and New York's Host Community Benefit Program. These examples show that grant making, bill relief, and community projects are common approaches to this type of funding. Staff also considered supporting other community power initiatives such as community solar and sponsorships and partnerships as part of our options, but quickly realized that the funding anticipated would not be able to cover a significant amount of those budgets, and that these initiatives would concentrate the impact of the funding to specific communities as opposed to our entire service territory, which a grant program can kind of open that up to. After reviewing these models, staff concluded that our grant-making approach focused on community clean energy projects would allow us to achieve many of these goals within, again, one flexible framework. And we realized that Community Power also already has the infrastructure to do this effectively. Next slide, please. Rather than building an entirely new program from scratch, we do have a lot of lessons learned to leverage and refine from our existing Community Clean Energy Grants program. So in here, I've included kind of some of the key takeaways from the policy that was adopted by the board back in February of 2024. And this approach offers us administrative efficiency, lessons learned from established partnerships, and a program structure that already aligns with our goals. The funding priorities as approved by the board currently include increasing energy literacy, supporting clean energy education, improving air quality through electrification, clean energy workforce development, as well as energy resilience and backup power. Within the program structure, eligible applicants will be tax-exempt nonprofits. Projects will be evaluated by a review committee, including Community Power representatives, and applications will be assessed based on alignment with funding priorities, feasibility, community served, and potential impact. Currently, so you all know, grantees must submit final reports with measurable outcomes. Staff informs the board of program-related disbursements as well as you all, and all projects must comply with applicable laws and labor requirements. You heard about 2 projects funded through this program during our last meeting, which demonstrate how this program already supports community clean and initiatives and efforts across the region. And as part of this process, we would expect to run a competitive request for proposals process for a program administrator to support us in the implementation of this work. Next slide, please. In terms of timeline, with your input tonight and the board direction later this month, we will begin moving toward developing a framework for approval later this summer. We look forward to hearing your feedback so that we can develop an effective framework in which community interests are well represented. The process is transparent, inclusive, and accessible, and ultimately, Community Power delivers concrete, meaningful benefits with a clearly defined structure that ensures accountability and lasting impact. So, really looking forward to your feedback in the discussion, and that ends my presentation.
Thank you, Leah. Sandra, do we have any public comment on this?
We did not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'll turn it over to committee members. Questions or comments on framework? Yes, Russ.
I'm very familiar with FPUD's community benefit.
Could you
program.
speak up a little bit?
I'm very familiar with FPUD's community benefit program. I was one of the people who helped them get it approved through LAFCO and then implement it. They do limit it to nonprofits, but also government agencies. Would ours also be open to government agencies?
Yes.
Please. I really like the framework in which you presented this, and I don't know if this is me stepping outside of that framework. And so when I first heard about this at the briefing earlier this week, I was thinking a lot about this. So I don't know if I'm kind of missing the boat. My first thought was I'm still very much in love with the solar battery savings program and know that the benefits are trending downward in year 2 and year 3. I have no idea if this would make sense, but maybe using the funds to stabilize the downward trend within communities of interest, or possibly even if the funds would be sizable enough, possibly even tick them up, as I believe that year 1 of the solar battery savings program would, people who wanted to take advantage of it have reached out for it. I imagine year 2 and year 3 of this program,
it starts becoming a little bit harder to reach communities that weren't initially fully invested in it. So can we use the funds to maybe make it even more attractive for communities of concern? So just my thoughts, very much like the idea of the grant. In my head, I'm like, how do we like this program that already exists, it's already governed, that I think could make a lot of impact or continue to make a lot of
No,
impact.
there's a lot of flexibilities. Dana can certainly take that back to see like if that falls within the allowable uses and then kind of observe kind of like strategy wise how all of these programs are doing and how we can benefit that one specifically. Now that you mentioned it as part of the feedback. So thank you.
Sean. So, great presentation, absolutely love it. I think the grant program is great. I love the small businesses are, I think that's really, really great. Something else that I was wondering about though is has Community Power ever thought of, making more of a direct investment as opposed to like a grant, actually like making an equity investment in some of these projects, or has that ever been on the table? Or just curious, opposed to just grant funding, because grant funding is great and helpful as well. But it's a different level of involvement. Just curious.
Okay. So one thing that might help the context here is we're also looking at a non-residential program for SBS right now.
Okay.
And we're going to do some research on that this year. We obviously know that there's some gaps in the market. And so, to your point earlier, what are we trying to do over the next couple of years? We are looking at other ways to address some of our other customers and other members of our community that have similar needs, but are different customer segments. And that might lead into something akin to what you're describing. With this grant program, the way that CO has laid it out, we think we're hitting a couple of birds with one stone, right? I mean, these projects ultimately we're hoping will feed into our virtual power plant with SBS residential and all of our other DER programs that are eligible as well. So this is sort of a test bed heading into that direction. I think the key here, though, and CO touched on this, is the funding is inconsistent. So when we're planning, we've got to be somewhat nimble in how we're deploying that. Right? So we're looking at this to kind of seed that pilot for SBS non-res, but also allowing for it to be as flexible for our community members as possible too. So we're testing a few things here at the same time.
That's really great. I mean, I think that's awesome. If there's an opportunity down the road to consider maybe more of a partnership with some of these projects to get them going, because, a lot of short-termism out there, and sometimes you need a little bit of help from someone with plays a long game like we have to play.
Yeah.
So anyways, just thinking.
Peter.
I'd like to just give you a little feedback on the criteria that should be behind these programs. And I think they're fabulous. I think we're doing absolutely the right thing, making these investments. The first one is that the benefits should derive to San Diego County. Sometimes there are more far-flung benefits that would benefit people in other counties, states. But given our footprint here within the county of San Diego, it should benefit San Diego, the residents and businesses of San Diego County. Secondly, programs, a leading criteria should be, does this reduce carbon and air pollution? As we reduce carbon, and by the way, San Diego Community Power is the biggest reducer of carbon in our atmosphere of any program that's ever been conceived. So we're doing the right thing. But reducing carbon always has the co-benefit of reducing air pollution and thereby improving the health of the residents of San Diego County. So program criteria, in my opinion, should be within San Diego County, providing for reduction of greenhouse gas and air pollution, which has a benefit to the people of the county. Third thing I would recommend is that this isn't environmental, it's economic. that it benefit the residents of San Diego County economically. Because we know that we're in a very high cost of living area with everything from food to gasoline and certain housing ridiculously high and hard for people to live in. So, you know, if that in some way can ameliorate the difficulty of living here, that would be a plus. I applaud these programs and fantastic.
Happy.
A clarifying question for you, Peter. So were you saying in your first recommendation that if SDCP were to get into a community benefits agreement with a developer for a project in, say, Kern County, that those dollars should actually be regranted to San Diego County?
I wouldn't foresee that. I just want to make that a lower priority than for projects within the county of San Diego for a bunch of reasons.
Okay, I guess I'll just go on the record that I wouldn't agree with that. If there's a project going into a community, there should be a prioritization for the community benefits to go to that community that'll be impacted from that project. Even if it is a San Diego investment, I just think I've worked with organizations in the Imperial Valley that deal with a plethora of issues, and they're so limited in resources that if we could provide them something for the development, I think that would make sense rather than further extracting those dollars back into our community while also receiving the benefit while they receive the harm. Not that clean energy is harmful. But yeah, so.
Can I follow up on that? So the very first power purchase agreement that came to San Diego Community Power was the Humbug Hot Springs project, which was large industrial scale. And the county of San Diego was the permitting agency for that. And they negotiated a community benefits contract that would solely benefit, and I think it was about $4 million. Would solely benefit the residents and businesses of Jacumba. So, you know, we're talking more about putting this money into DER type projects or related to the Community Energy Grants Program. I'm just wondering if there should be some flexibility though, given that there are sometimes some real impacts on the communities where projects are located.
Yeah.
That there shouldn't be some way to steer money to help the community out that is being impacted by the development of a project.
But quickly, Jacumba is in San Diego.
Yes, it is. But it's outside of the framework that's being proposed for discussion here, in the sense that most of the money would go into the Community Energy Grants Program, which already has a number of really important priority areas.
I think
Is that right?
this is great feedback, and a lot of our community benefits agreements with some of these developers they're not all consistent, right? Some of these developers are doing exactly what you're doing and providing us some of these resources to invest in our community. So some of that's already ingrained in some of these agreements, but I think it's really good feedback. Thank you.
Yes, Luis.
Again, I'm sorry, crazy ideas. I think this is what you're asking us for. I'm remembering, I believe it was maybe a few months ago, we had the presentation on the different regional organizations across California. And one of the handouts that we received was a portfolio of the different services that are provided, different spaces. I think it was LA who, one of the programs that they had piloted was electric bike rebate programs. And I'm at this moment combining two passion projects of mine, which is electrification and bicycles. And I have no idea if that would be something for us to be able to explore for this funding, supporting, you know, the purchase and distribution of electric bicycles to the community.
We have actually, I think that something that's a positive and a benefit of the grant making program is the flexibility for us to include several projects that, you know, do address several aspects of sustainability, electrification, and decarbonization. So I think that within a more flexible framework, all of those things that you're throwing at me could potentially be true.
Fantastic.
And in fact, we have in the past gotten proposals very similar to what you're describing with the new grants program?
I remember I was lucky enough to participate in a program at the county a couple of years ago, and had one during the pandemic. And it single-handedly helped me survive. So I just think about, the true benefits to the community from that type of program.
Testimonial. Thank you. Yeah, great. Yes, Kenneth.
Yeah, a general comment. We talk about the PL, this last presentation, and we talk about wanting to encourage smaller businesses. But from my perspective, it seems like we're building a lot more roadblocks that smaller people really can't do. I mean, these writers, the model I would like to look at is something we really did very well on, like the Coast Market, the Suncoast Market grant. For those who don't know that, what Suncoast Market is the first market in San Diego that is all electric. And it's a marvelous market. It also prepares food, by the way, like induction stoves and everything we help them do. And that grant made that happen. What I like to do, because I know there's a lot of dedicated people there, I want to go backwards and say, how did you do it? What's your book that you, how's your proposal look? What do you have to include? I mean, the idea of trying to help some people get into these areas is a really big task, because somebody comes in, the consultant, I'd like to do this. They go, well, you have this, do you have that? I mean, which is good to have. All these things are wonderful, they're incredible. But wouldn't it be nice to encourage people, even a dozen employees, to be able to still do prevailing wage, because we should kind of show them how to do it, instead of having to be a major corporation. Everybody I know that's doing anything like this are huge and have staffs to do all sorts of stuff. Anyway, just don't fill out. I do applaud the Suncoast was correct. It just appeared in our little paper the other day, today. So bragging about it for a little bit for Imperial Beach. So that was very, very nice. Congratulations.
Alonzo. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steele, but I think one of the questions you're kind of posing, wanted feedback on, is whether it'd be a good idea to integrate it into existing funding programs already, or stay kind of flexible, nimble, standalone program. And just hearing word, I didn't have the crazy ideas that Luis has, but I'm a fan of Luis's crazy ideas. I think mine were more along with Ross's question of whether or not public agencies would make sense for some of these programs. I was thinking schools, which are public schools, are inherently a nonprofit. It wouldn't be a no-brainer to partner with them, but I think that would be fantastic. But my overall thinking is that, based on the feedback, I'm thinking it might be a good idea to remain nimble, flexible, and standalone program, and also taking into consideration why the project is paying these fees. So whether that's geographic targeting or targeting a particular need or type of impact, all the more reason to stay nimble and flexible. What? Oh, Larry?
I'm looking at this table and the location. Several of them are outside of San Diego County. And this has been brought up about the funding, the amount. And these contractors have already proposed a certain amount of that to be used locally. Is that correct?
Contracted to in their power purchase
Okay,
agreement.
but those are not detailed here in this presentation.
The language specific to the allowable uses for each of the funds varies per project.
Right.
And there is flexibility. Generally, there's discretion for community power to use the funding to, benefit its residents. There's nothing in the current projects that requires us to spend funding in the counties that we see in there. So if they're outside of San Diego County, there's not a requirement per the contract for us to spend those dollars in that county.
That's an option considering the local.
Correct,
impact.
yes, that's part of the discussion today.
Okay, and so this doesn't list what the contractor was proposing to
No,
use
it
the
does
fund
not.
for.
It does not.
So how do you take that into account?
Well, that's where general counsel will support us in interpreting the terms of the contract.
Okay, And I like the idea of reviewing the solar battery savings program as it goes forward year to year and seeing how successful it is. You know, some people may still find it difficult to make the leap because of income and their financial situation. And so it would be helpful, I think, to look at that solar battery savings program as it moves forward, as Chris was suggesting, and see if some of these funds can help supplement and make them more successful. And of course, I like the idea of supporting electric bicycles as well, if that makes sense, and there's an easy way to do that. When I saw the criteria or the details, I thought it just said nonprofit. But I heard people say government and small business.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed that. Okay, so that's all available.
Peter.
Yeah, I just clarify my prior point. I don't think the criteria should preclude funding outside of city, but it should be one of the criteria in the mix that would give favorable treatment to projects that benefit in air quality and economic standing.
Okay. Oh, yes, Ross.
Just wanted to echo. Help over here. I wanted to echo what Peter said. I will say originally very much was full agreement with you and Matthew did sway me, but the one thing I will say is I think being flexible is great, but I would still personally, and I know it's the elected official in me, but I would love to see public agencies or entities be able to be recipients of these because that is long-term benefit to ratepayers. That's all.
Thank you. All right, this is a receive and file item. No further action is needed. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Let's move on to our standing items. As a reminder, the CAC may suggest agenda items for a board of directors meeting agenda by communicating with me, CAC Chair, and community power staff before and or after a regular CAC meeting. If suggested at this time, there will be no discussion or action by the CAC. Unless this item has been included on the agenda. Do any of our members have recommendations on potential items for the board of directors? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to turn it over to Community Power's Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Jack Clark, for the COO role.
Thank you, Chair Harris. This is a new addition to our agenda, so bear with me. You may have heard a couple of the updates already this week in your briefing that I'm about to share, but we thought that they were important enough that I'd make sure that you heard them more than once. So just short of a month ago, on February 17th, the city of Coronado voted unanimously to join Community Power as our newest member agency. We are very excited about this addition. Coronado Council member Amy Stewart led an in-depth presentation and overview on the council's research regarding community power and CCAs. If you are familiar with Amy, you will know that she's also an energy law professor at USD, has been around San Diego for quite some time, and sat with me on the San Diego Energy Working Group for a number of years. So she knows this space quite well, and the presentation was quite thorough, effective. She really sucked the air out of the room. She did an outstanding job. And as part of that presentation, she noted that people of Coronado deserve the same opportunity for affordability, choice, and energy programs the way that most of the rest of the county are experiencing right now and enjoying. As you can imagine, we've been serving our customers for about 5 years, and with that comes, as you know, a strong reputation that we built in concert with you all and our board. So the addition of Coronado really is a testament to the good work that we've been doing with you all and the board and our very experienced and passionate staff now for the better part of 5 years. Coronado chose to join the organization because, as I mentioned, we've proven ourselves over that time period. So it's a sincere thank you to all of your efforts as well. They're joining us. What comes next? Over the next several months, Coronado will receive 3 years worth of data from SDG&E for analysis by Community Power. This is fairly typical for all new member agencies looking to join the CCA. We're looking for their load profiles and their load information over the last 3 years. By August 30th, Coronado will need to take a second vote to make a preliminary decision on whether to join Community Power following that analysis. Following that vote, we will return to our board to present our findings, and they will have the opportunity to vote on admitting Coronado. If approved, Community Powers Board and Coronado would then vote to amend the Joint Powers Agreement by October 31st of this year. Community Power would then file an implementation plan with the California Public Utilities Commission, and pending CPUC approval, Coronado residents and businesses could begin receiving service in early 2028. And this process is typical for all member agencies. We went through this process with all of ours, but that's a very exciting update for us. I'll move on to my next update and I can take any questions. Committee member Emerson stole a bit of my thunder. Again, you've heard this update throughout the week. We are also very excited about our A stable credit rating that was announced earlier this week as well. We got this rating from Standard & Poor's. As you can imagine, it is a significant milestone. Committee member Vasilakis mentioned earlier today that you heard about the need for this credit rating before we were actually up and running. So this is a long-term goal for every CCA. The fact that we came out of the gate with a stable A really is meaningful. Not every CCA comes out of the gate with that kind of rating. So it is a true testament to thoughtful decision-making by our board, contributions again from you all, and the outstanding contributions from our staff over recent years. It really is a testament to the resilient financial footing that we've been able to build, and a strong public agency that can serve our communities for the long term, which is really our intention here. And this is a big deal. Thank you.
You say this makes us a power player in the power.
Done here. I think it does. Yes. Thank you for that. Almost. But I really want to echo one really important sentiment. This is a reflection of what we do behind the scenes day in and day out. So this is really a recognition for our staff. The choices we make are really thoughtful. They're in depth. We do a lot of research and analysis on customers, our stakeholders, and the longevity of the organization itself. So this is really a big win for our team. And it is a collective effort. And again, Andrea touched on the real impact also that committee member Emerson brought up earlier. This stable A rating strengthens our ability to manage risk. It strengthens and secures more favorable financing for contract terms, and continues to deliver reliable, affordable, and clean power to the communities we serve. So we're able to pass whatever savings we get through these contract negotiations as a result of this rating onto our customers. So big win for us. And that concludes my report. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee member announcements. Does anyone here have something they'd like to share? Yes.
As a member of the Sierra Club Legal Committee, we have lawsuits against counties, cities, and developers that have failed in one way or another to uphold the law they passed in the case of municipalities, or developers to fail to comply with CEQA or other county regulations. So I'm happy to announce, and Tara, I think you already know about this, that when we get a settlement, the developer has to contribute to a greenhouse gas reduction fund that may reside in one of several nonprofits. Our settlement with Green Hill Ranch in Lakeside is going to provide several $100,000 to Hammond Climate Solutions.
Sarah, did you want to say anything about?
Hi. Yes, we are, there's an unknown timeline on it, but we know the funds will come, and we have developed a holistic healthy communities pilot program that's actually starting with Imperial Beach, the Boys and Girls Club of South County in Imperial Beach, which was our community clean energy grant program grantee from last year. And so we're going deeper with our grantees, not just helping fund solar and storage, but looking to do electric buses, electric vehicle charging, especially in South County and Imperial Beach, helping with air filters, air monitoring, indoor vertical gardens, if places have less polluted air, outdoor gardens. And so we are very excited to expand our impact with that grant funding for East County and South County.
Bravo. We also recently got $13 million from a project which was originally called Otay Village 13, which is in East County, just north east of Otay Lakes. And that $13 million is going to a similar greenhouse gas fund in the San Diego Foundation. Sierra Club cannot accept or control the funds. All we can do is we can recommend some criteria and make sure that the funds get directed to an organization that will follow those criteria. Keep you posted on that.
Okay. Other committee announcements? Kenneth?
I had, this week I had a fun deal to go to a presentation about our battery storage program from the person of two community presentations. Very nice. And please see our community power being mentioned again publicly. And I just was, it was nice having the free beer too. So rude. But it was a very nice community activity.
Yes, Larry.
Yeah, two things. For next month, it's April, and you know, a lot of times there are birthday events.
Yes.
The Electric Vehicle Association, together with other organizations, support the Drive Electric Earth Month in April. So there'll be cities and agencies that will have events that will support electric vehicle and electrification of transportation. So that's just one thing. And Tia was able, and Kate, the assistant, were able to send me information on specific events in National City and their times.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to participate in the first one. I plan to participate in the next two. I think it's very helpful if you contact each of the CAC members, the specific events in their area. And even a phone call, it helps me a lot. Say, take a look at that email. Here's some events you might be interested in next time. And we don't always have time, but I was able to participate in just the other day. And Kate came in and she got up and talked about solar battery safety program. And I was able to add on to that the benefit of the solar and even shifting from gas heat pumps to for electric heat pump, from gas hot water heaters to electric heat pumps. And just it's easy to add on and work as a team when those opportunities are available to us. So I just encourage, don't put that list of items at the bottom of an email when we're talking about these meetings. Put it as separate.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
You can notify individually, these are the events in your area. And these are the times would you be interested? And for me, it helps get one phone call.
Yeah.
You might
So,
listen.
Larry, this is really a good segue in that I wanted to remind all of our members that recently the Board of Directors adopted the 2026 work plan of the CAC. And part of this work plan is that each member is committing to attend at least 2 community events at which Community Power has a presence, either as a sponsor or a table or a presenter, any of these events. And of course, CEO has been including a list of these events every month. And then we discussed about how it can be a separate document. So thank you, Larry, for that input. I did want to let you know there's a couple of events coming up that CEO and her team can use some volunteers. Day of the Child in Chula Vista on Saturday, April 11th. South Bay Earth Day in Chula Vista on Saturday, April 18th. And Dia de los Niños in Imperial Beach on Saturday, April 25th. If you're interested, seize Leo after the meeting. I also wanted to mention that I'll be providing a quarterly report to the Board of Directors during their March 26th meeting. I also will be away for our next CAC meeting, so Luis will be chairing the meeting. And Form 700, have you heard about this document? Okay, need I say more? There is a deadline, right?
April 1st.
Okay. Yes, Larry.
Form 700. I always need help with those kind of things, and you just send me something and you have to. It drives me crazy to go through those documents. Well, maybe I only need to fill out 1 page. There's 10 pages. Last year, somebody walked me through, and I got through it within 5 or 10 minutes. I need someone to walk me through who's familiar with that form, because there's nobody else on my left or my right at home who can say, "Oh, you can skip that. You can just." So if somebody can call me and walk me through it, I'll get it done. Otherwise, I don't want to waste an hour trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
So
Our clerk is
it's helpful for me. When I was at work, I could ask the neighbors where I work, say, "What do you do here?" and get it right. But when I sent the email, somebody automatically replies, doesn't help me get it done. So
Right. And we want to ensure everyone does get it in on time. Very important. So last chance, any more announcements? Okay, that brings us to the end of our agenda. I appreciate everyone's participation today during a nice, short meeting. We are adjourned until our next regularly scheduled meeting, April 9th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. right here at the board. Thanks, everyone. Is it adjourned, sir?